Welcome on my show, Babak and Farhaj. Let's start your journey as a child.
I wasn't very good in school till like age of 16. I actually struggled with being able to speak any language. I wanted to learn, but what I was learning wasn't very engaging or wasn't being delivered in the right way. People to keep telling me I should do things this way and just work up the ladder. I was like, there must be maybe a better way to do something. I was lucky that
I was kind of born into a lower middle class family with really large dreams and aspirations. It was kind of around the 9th grade when I got my first adrenaline rush, going to computer science class or something in our school, tiny little room. And there were a bunch of nerdy Indian kids in there playing with these robots. I guess for the first time, I begged my parents, I would really love this robotics kit.
Kids don't have patience to go through those lectures. What do you think should be an ideal way of changing the most traditional way of education?
when I was growing up, it was always do your good, get your good grade, nail your degree, and you're guaranteed a job. That was not happening. It's probably the one thing that if different can just get people excited to learn. That's probably the first thing you need to do.
I think in my opinion, really good educators are really good storytellers. And unfortunately, most educators don't get into education for the purpose of storytelling. Thinking that one professor can teach 30 to 40 kids and be extremely productive at making all of them succeed is just really difficult if they're not a powerful storyteller. So there's a lot of new institutions. At Build Space, what we did is we really empowered people to follow their passion.
The build space that you mentioned, is it still on as a project?
It's crazy. Last season, there were 70,000 people who participated in the program.
We just came back from Argentina. I think I met 7-8 people that were inspired and they're building amazing companies or pop-ups or amazing tech businesses. They're like, oh my God, you were at Build Space. That inspired me because
So now build space is gone. What's the next story?
we left just kind of a little while before.
The 6-week really intensive one called Solana Core that helped developers go from zero to being job ready.
There's a lot of transaction already happening of physical products with the cryptocurrencies.
And we saw this in Argentina. There was a bakery right underneath and they were accepting payments in stablecoins.
Oh, beautiful. Welcome to another episode of the podcast that we have dedicated for the leadership and a lot coming for the youth out there. A very interesting topic, especially for all the techies out there. We have special guests who have come and joined us today to share all their experiences and sharing a platform for all those techies to come on board and see how they can leverage from these expertise that they're bringing on board, not only to a specific space, but they are going global. They're working with the government. They're working and putting a lot of efforts, even when it comes to the regulation, policies, to work with the governments to make it easy for all of you to come and join these tech platform and explore more into it, grow out of it. And it's a journey that they have already started, and I'm sure it's a long way for them. And join them in this journey. And so happy to welcome Babak and Farhaj on the show. So welcome on my show, Babak and Farhaj. It's a very interesting name, Farhaj, because I always had the D in my mind.
Yeah.
So welcome on board.
Thanks for having us.
So let's go ahead with the introduction of yours. So let's start with Babak.
Lovely to be here. I'm Babak. I'm co-founder of Forma. And prior to that, I've been living in the UAE for just over 10 years. I set up the largest Web2 accelerator and most active VC called Plug and Play Middle East. I'm just super passionate about developing programs and ecosystems that help entrepreneurs get started and grow. So I've been doing that in the region. I've been doing that back in the UK and for some time in US and Germany as well. But I'm really excited about our discussion today, looking into leadership and the future and things like that. But I guess that's a very short TLDR about me.
Looking forward. Welcome. Farhaj.
Yeah, I'm Farhaj. I'm also the co-founder of Forma, where we're developing Solana economic zones. Prior to this, I was a 2-time founder. So primarily in the regulatory technology space in the US. I built the independent contractor compliance platform. We ended up selling to Checker, which is a large background check company. And then I joined the founding team of Build Space. So just like Babak, I have a very strong shared passion of the education system and how it needs to be reinvented. So I was part of the founding team where we essentially built the world's largest tuition-free online school for entrepreneurs. We had 200,000 students, 10,000 businesses get launched, everything from anime artists to filmmakers to AI and crypto apps. That was a lot of fun. And that's kind of how we met. We worked on doing a lot of government BD work together. And just got excited about the same kind of vision of the future.
Beautiful.
And so really excited to be here, and thanks for the invite.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I see a lot of work that you've already put in before coming to your new project. Let's start your journey as a child. So let's understand how naughty you were. Then how did the whole story started from your studies, your curriculums, and your journey ahead? Because the whole format here is about inspiring the new aspiring leaders. And let's understand from you, starting with Babak. How were you as a child?
As a child, yeah, I think the starting point was kind of unstable to say the least. So I was born during a ceasefire day in the Gulf War in my home country of Iran. And my family and I, we were fortunate enough that we could emigrate and become refugees in the United Kingdom, and that's where I was did my schooling, and was first in Brighton, then moved to London. I wasn't very good in school, I'm not gonna lie. Until like age of 16, I actually struggled with like being able to speak any language. I didn't know I had like dyslexia, dyspraxia. So I was like very underperforming. And if you're underperforming, and I had two brothers who were doing pretty well, and I'm a very competitive person, I was like, I can be better than them, but it just wasn't clicking for me. So academically, especially having very high aspirational Asian parents, like they don't want you to get 95%. They're like, where's that 5%? You should become an engineer, Mohandes. So that was the pressure I was under. I was like, oh my God. Like I'm completely failing at 16. And then I think I went to my brother's graduation, and he went to a great university at LSE and things like that. And I was like, he didn't get first class honors. He got like a 2-1. I'm going to do everything I can to get that. And just purely out of competitiveness, I just pulled myself together. And then I then went to LSE. I got my first class honors in economics. I did my master's. I got my distinction. I got an award as well. So I suddenly became super academic. But for some reason, for me, studying wasn't the most exciting thing. I don't know if it was because of my learning difficulties or whatever it was, but I always felt that I wanted to learn, but what I was learning wasn't very engaging or wasn't being delivered in the right way. And definitely was not inclusive of like the learning, let's say, difficulties that I had. And yeah, I kind of went into like traditional business at first, so like investment banking and consulting in the city of London, because basically people around where I was either become a doctor, engineer, or some kind of thing in finance or legal. So I did that for a while, enjoyed it. But then I think over some time, I was just like, man, I don't want people to keep telling me like I should do things this way and just like work up the ladder. I was like, there must be maybe a better way to like do something. And I was lucky that like I completely by fluke fell into like the tech world, because I met a guy at McDonald's of all places who was working at a company called Rocket Internet. I'm not even sure if I told you that story.
No.
So I actually had a broken leg, and I was like crutches and stuff like that. And the guy was just like, oh dude, what happened to your leg? And all this kind of stuff. And then we just started talking. He's like, oh dude, I was like interested in like jobs because I'm studying, but I'm happy to work at any point and like do all kinds of interesting things. And he's like, oh dude, could you start tomorrow and like work on a new upcoming company? It was a competitor of Airbnb that Rocket Internet was starting, called Wimdu.
Okay.
And I was like, cool, bet. I started the next day. And then I was like head of growth, and the company went from strength to strength. And I was like, oh, actually working in a startup environment, you're learning a lot more, doing a lot more. And like the upside could be like a lot. It's like very meritocratic. It's not like, because I also felt in the corporate world, like, it's not always the best people that get the best pay or get the most satisfaction from their job. There's a lot of politics involved with these things, right? And I was just like, I'm not into that stuff, right? So yeah, after I got into that, I also wanted to go back into the education system, because I was like, look, I've learned so much being in venture capital and now the tech scene in the UK for some time. And I was involved with like the early development of one of the most successful global incubators called Entrepreneur First. And I was like, look, I would love to bring what I've learned here and inspire young people from my communities in the UK. So then I went and worked for a charity called Teach First, was a school teacher in West London, and realized that a lot of young people are like unaware of what opportunities are out there. Like, I was at an all-girls school in Brentford in West London, and the paths and the aspirations they had, not to say everyone should be a founder or it's like that's the holy grail, but just to be aware that like what it means to be an entrepreneur is actually something that anyone can do. You just have to take a bet on yourself, and there's lots of ways to raise funding, all these things. So then I developed with some friends like a non-profit called Founders for School, where we brought, I think, like 20,000 business founders and leaders to actually speak to over 1 million students across the country, just to tell them their journeys. Like, how did they start? Was it like, were they, two people's hacking in a garage? Often those stories aren't always like that, right? So yeah, then I realized like, the world of education, the world of entrepreneurship needs to become much more accessible. And unfortunately, I was moved to Dubai like 10 years ago. And there's many reasons why. I think I won't list, there's too many great reasons. But then I fell into kind of the venture capital scene here. And then I built up my latest business prior to joining BuildSpace and what we're doing now to help hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs to like bring their products to the region, create economic growth and value. And throughout the whole process, both in UAE and UK, I was working very closely as a government advisor to think about how do you build the right policies and physical infrastructure and digital policies that attract, enable, and develop talent in tech. And that's kind of what brought us into this world. And but I definitely started rough as a young kid. But I think that's the great thing about entrepreneurship in tech is that you can funnel your energy and your way of thinking to shape your own world. So lucky that I got down to this place.
It's a beautiful journey. A lot of learnings for all our audiences out there, that don't limit yourself. Even if you have challenges as a child, there is a lot of opportunities. A very interesting point that you highlighted about the corporate world. So if you are suffering within those environments, it's not end of the world. So you have a lot of opportunity to come out and try and experiment, and of course leverage on the networking side, right?
True.
And you also started your foundation. Can you explain me more about your foundation?
So it was a non-profit that there's a lady, a friend of mine, Sherry. She's an OBE, so I'm not sure if I should call her a dame or she was, I think, 2 years in a row given the title of like Angel Investor of the Year UK. She was like director of London Stock Exchange. She's like really the brains and like powerhouse that kind of built this. I was kind of like an early adopter and promoter of this and trying to kind of get more entrepreneurs onto it and grow the platform, because I was a teacher. So I knew like, let's say, the academic world and what like teachers are, what are the boundaries for teachers to actually adopt this new technology. But yeah, I mean, I think she's now pretty much like full time on this. I mean, she's the kind of person, I think she has like 3-4 kids and like many businesses. I don't know how she's just kept growing this among her whole portfolio of her very, very high responsibility life. But she knows more about the day-to-day. I've been now that I've been here for the last 10 years, I haven't really been engaged with them at all. But I know that they're doing a lot of important impact and now working very closely with local municipalities and the Department of Education in the UK. So very high impact what she's done.
A very important point that you mentioned over there, that she's doing multiple businesses. Because this is the norm that we want to break in the society, because the moment somebody wants to start, people will start putting you into one bracket. Find your niche, do one thing, focus on one thing. But if you have the capability of doing multiple things, why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think this is a very good example, a success case, that people are capable of doing many things in parallel, and that people should not limit themselves within one bracket. Yeah,
100%.
Absolutely.
Let's start with you, Farhaj.
Yeah, I mean, I think similar educational background or experience. My parents are from Kerala. They immigrated here to the UAE right after they got married. My dad was working as like a laborer at like a cargo facility. My mom got into banking really early on. So I was kind of born into like like lower middle class family with really large dreams and aspirations in the Middle East, like a lot of my friends here. And so I went to a private Indian school called Our Own, did my entire time there from kindergarten all the way till the 12th grade. It's like the Indian CBSE curriculum. I know I sound American, but promise I'm Indian. But yeah, so it was extremely competitive, very academically focused. There's not a lot of room for extracurriculars. So I'd say I was kind of like in games, we call them NPCs, which are like these non-playable characters, just kind of like playing every single thing by the rules, like the nicest kid, would never raise his voice. My grades weren't that impressive, but I did okay. And then it was kind of like around the 9th grade when I got my first, I'd say, like adrenaline rush. And so I was like going to some like computer science class or something in our school. And then I saw this like tiny little room, and there were a bunch of like nerdy Indian kids in there, all playing with like these robots. And I was like, what's going on here? And so after the class, I decided to stop by, and I was like, wow, it's the coolest thing ever. So I guess like for the first time, I like begged my parents to be like, I would really love this robotics kit. I've never asked for anything except a Game Boy, which I really loved. And so, maybe instead of the time that I spent playing Pokemon Fire Red, I could spend it building robots. And so my cousin apparently had bought, the kit, and he lived only like 2 floors above, Indian families all live in the same area.
Yeah.
And so he was like not interested anymore. It was like in Toy Story when the kid gives up Woody.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll take it from you. So he sold it to me at a discount. And then
Sold it to you.
Yeah.
You started trading at a very early age.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, so there had to be some sort of commercial agreement. But then that was it. And then like it was impossible to keep me in the classroom. Parents weren't happy about it because I was like skipping every class possible, doing the least amount of work needed to have grades that were good enough to pass. And it was like technically 1 year away from your first board exam, and then 3 years away from your second board exam. And so, yeah, it was crazy. And so a lot of people, I think at that point too, when I started to tinker with the robots and kind of do a bunch of stuff, because basically there was this international competition called the World Robot Olympiad, where teams from different countries around the world would go and compete.
Right.
And then, the winners get prizes or whatever.
Yeah.
And so it was crazy. So the first ever competition I went to, the robot was not working at all. We had a really weird challenge. It was like a set of uneven steps, and you had to have a robot carry an egg up and down the steps without breaking it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, which is really cool though, because I learned how to code for the first time a little bit. I was like messing with my hands and building stuff and interacting with electronics. So like, I think it like really stimulated my brain. And so the first 2 rounds, the robot flapped, and then the third round, I was like, F it, like I'll just change a little bit of the code to rotations instead of time or something really nerdy like that and see what happens. And like it went down and came down. It was like 5 seconds faster than everyone else.
Awesome.
So that was the first time I ever won anything. Right. So we won World Robot Olympiad Arabia in Qatar.
Wow.
I traveled there. I was like, oh my God. Like I was on the stage, people were taking photos, they gave me a gold medal.
Amazing.
And free, like more robotics kids. So I was like, more pars. And then that kind of became like one of my obsessions. So I completely broke out of my shell. I was very introverted. I became completely extroverted. Tried to find every single opportunity I could to have an excuse to be outside of the classroom. Got enough grades that my parents were happy with my 10th grade performance.
Balanced it out.
Yeah.
Very nice.
But then, kind of like kept doing this all the way to the 12th grade. And unfortunately, right before I graduated high school, which is also very complicated because 12th board exams, very important.
True.
I think I probably spent 15% of my time in the classroom. Yeah, 85% of my time was going to like Bits Pilani nearby.
Okay.
I like somehow convinced the guy who was the head of the robotics lab to give me his equipment. So my dad would drive me to school and I'd take the metro and like a bus, like 45 minutes to go there. And he knew, I told them, and like work out of the college as like a high school kid on the robot to learn more about drones because that's what I was working on. But yeah, long story short, ended up winning the World Robot Olympiad. We're the first team in UAE history to actually win the competition. And then I was like, this is really great. And I want to go and pursue this more. And so that time I thought I wanted to be a roboticist. And personally, I felt like the cultural machine in India at that point in time was not a good place for me.
Correct.
Because all the universities, my friends, my peers, like they're all saying it was way too academically oriented. If you see Three Idiots, right? They basically kill hope inside you from being innovative. And I was like, America, all I read about is all these really cool tech companies, a lot of crazy research, a lot of huge institutions. So I was like, I made a deal with my parents where I was like, if I get a scholarship, you let me go study in America. And they're like, yeah. And so I kind of like bulldozed my way through to apply to a bunch of colleges and then actually got a scholarship and the opportunity to intern at Lockheed Martin's lab in this university called University of Texas at Arlington. So my parents were like, I guess we got to let him go now. And so I went there and it was really great. But what was funny is like my first semester, I was like the youngest person ever to work at the lab. And I hated it. I was like, it sucks. Like, there's a bunch of PhDs, they're all like smoking cigarettes. They're intentionally like very slowly working on this project. I want to go 5x the speed. Right. And I was like, I thought this was like the most progressive lab. And this is like the most boring place on earth.
Oh my God.
And I want to get out of here. And so the rest of my college time was the same thing. You had to pay me to keep me in a classroom.
Oh my God.
So I found every sort of extracurricular opportunity to try to just like tinker with things. And then eventually I ended up like getting a lot into like Greek life and then like student council, like a bunch of these different things. And somehow like won this weird popularity contest to go and compete in the Red Bull Can You Make It challenge. And so this is also like another crazy thing, but basically they selected like 150 teams from around the world. And The Amazing Race, like the TV show?
Yes.
It was like that, but with college kids.
Okay.
So they take your passport, your phone, and your wallet away. And then you had to travel across Europe with no money, trading Red Bull as currency.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So out of like 40,000 people, we got selected as the Texas team. We went there. We finished the race in 7 days. We went from we started in Florence, Italy, and made it to Paris in 7 days. One of the days we even traded 2 Red Bulls to get a hotel room, which is wild. And yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And so that was the first time when I met someone who's building a startup.
Okay.
And so this guy just told me that, he just got a gig he got into a program by MIT's Sports Tech Lab or something like that. And they funded his company or his project so he could work full time on building an early version of, the company Mirror, where you kind of like box and you can match and like train.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, this is like crazy. You got paid to work on what you're most excited about? It sounds like the dream thing, And then that summer I spent time back in India. And I was like just hyper obsessed with this TV show called Silicon Valley. And this is like a nerdy comedy show about like a bunch of dweebs who go and start with a garage startup and then turn into this big enterprise. And I saw them and I was like, if these guys can do it, I can do it too.
Amazing.
And so that's kind of when like the whole like founder journey kicked off. So I like kind of like dropped out of school to like work on a bunch of startups. One failed, one had a moderately successful outcome. And then the last decade basically I've spent like in startups, working out of classrooms and boardrooms on things. And I think eventually started to like get very excited about inspiring, more people like me to follow the alternative life path, So, yeah.
This is interesting. I mean, the way your journey went from the schooling, you had some kind of self-motivation. You were obsessed with your skills and you believed in it. You knew that this is going to work.
Yeah.
So this gave you the whole introduction towards the whole technology side. And you were the most impatient child.
Yeah.
And usually nowadays, all children are like that. The new generation is like that, right? They don't have patience. They want everything like as of yesterday.
Yeah.
So I think the new generation is going to change the way the whole culture is going ahead, whether it's corporate world or the business world.
Yeah.
Things has to go fast. And a very important point that you both mentioned about the education.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to be done in education because we still see there's a lot of traditional way of teaching. We still see kids carrying big bags, those heavy bags. So I think there's a lot of changes that has to come. And even when I discuss with young kids, that's why we have special section, or the segment that we have is youth empowerment. Kids don't have patience to go through those lectures and, go at a very slow pace. They are very excited and they want to learn things very fast. What do you think should be an ideal way of changing the most traditional way of education and try to adapt to the psychology of the new generation? What would be your piece of advice?
I mean, that's kind of a question I've been obsessed about for a while because, like, I didn't have a great journey and a great experience in education. I guess there were some things you liked about it, and I think, yeah, exactly. I was just trying to be political for all those people, all those academics out there.
No, even I was the same, honestly.
Yeah. It's not
just
that-
wanted to finish the studies and do
parents,
exactly.
Pretty much, that was pretty much what it was, right?
Yeah.
And then as a teacher, because as a student is one thing, but then when you see it as a teacher and you're like, man, this is what the world could be, and then it's like you see what's like, especially us working in technology. Like I one thing I worry a lot about, like I don't have any children, but I think about like my niece and nephew who are, now mashallah a little bit older, but back then they were only like 2-3 years old, and I'm like, well, what's their future going to be like? What's their path? Because when I was growing up, it was always like, you do your good, get your good grades, pick your degree, nail your degree, and you're guaranteed a job. But it was like, that was not happening. And I think it's more and more not happening. And I think now more and more people are aware that things like technology, the world's much more globalized and competitive. It's important that people develop like the really important soft skills. Like they have to be good teamwork people. They have to be good communicators. They have to be creative, adaptable, resilient. And I think there's some parts of the education system that develops that. Like you have to be disciplined to work towards your, finals or whatever it may be. But a lot of things are lacking in the curriculum. And I think, one thing that I think is probably the one thing that if different academic institutions or like alternative paths can just get people excited to learn, that's probably the first thing you need to do. Like, because I think if you think that everyone's going to eat the same pie and they like it cooked in the same way, like the world doesn't really work like that, right? True. So I think if you look at all the really, solid, high quality, latest research about like, child psychology or best practices for education, differentiation is the key, and it's trying to find people's passions and unlocking it and then letting them go down whatever paths they may be. So it's good to have many alternatives. But I think if you don't instill people and feed their passion to learn, because everyone is able to be obsessed with something, but I think there should be more systems and programs that let people discover that at an early age, and then pathways for them to excel and go forwards. Because having one path for everybody, it's just not wise, you know? So that'd be my
Yeah.
biggest thing.
I think, in my opinion, like really good educators are really good storytellers, and unfortunately, most educators don't get into education for the purpose of storytelling
Correct.
and highlighting their obsession and curiosity about the subject themselves.
Right.
There's probably been in my lifetime 6 professors where I actually enjoyed sitting in their class. You know, that was it. And for the most part, again, they were just funny, obsessed, curious, and you could tell that there was this like innate passion for the subject. You know, it was like a politics professor in UT Arlington, a physics professor in high school, a history professor in like middle school, like very distinct. Like everyone else, like I don't remember, but these people I do because they were very interesting. It was one dude outside of the classroom. His name was Mr. Ramarao. He's the one who encouraged me to pursue robotics, and he didn't teach me anything. He just let me do what I wanted. You know, he's like, this kid is a nerd, he likes robots, and he would just like fight against my head teacher. His name was Mr. Ajoy, who was like kind of finding every single reason to like dog at me. You know, he made me like stand outside the class once because like went for the competition.
Oh my God.
You know,
That's funny.
but I think there's all of these like systematic rules, you know, that have been created, especially in the Asian education system, where it's so much about discipline.
Right.
And this might be a very hot take, but I think it's colonial hangover.
Yeah.
Right? As Indians, we were forced so
agree with
hard
you.
to observe all of these rules and go through these systemic ways of going up the ladder, you know, playing into the politics, appeasing other people's opinion to eventually gain what we deserve. And I think that system doesn't exist anymore.
Absolutely.
And so my opinion is like one-to-many education is broken. Thinking that one professor can teach 30 to 40 kids and be extremely productive at making all of them succeed
Right.
is just really difficult if they're not a powerful storyteller. And even if you look at data, right, in the United States, all of these kids that have personal tutors, like literally by 200, 300 points, score more on average in the SAT than people who go through public schools and the public training programs. And so the beauty is now, like the internet is so sophisticated, and you know these AI products like ChatGPT and you know Claude are so sophisticated. We have like a place where, in my opinion, what school could be is a social experience,
Yes.
so that you know kids aren't glued to their laptops and iPads; they make friends.
Right.
I think it can be a great accountability structure,
Right.
right? Where you know on a time-to-time basis, people can submit reports on what they're most interested in. I think there is a base level of knowledge, you know, about worldliness, about math, about science, about English that makes it very commercially viable for a kid to thrive in the world. But after a certain point, they should just follow what they're most interested in. And so there's a lot of new institutions. At Build Space, what we did is we really empowered people to follow their passion, but we gave them a 6-week framework,
Okay.
right? And we took out all the jargon that they had for tech, right? And they're like, build a minimum viable product. Like a 14-year-old doesn't care about that, you know? But then you could be like, build a toy version of your idea, right? Something that you could show your friends, they could interact with. It's fine if it breaks. You know, Taylor Swift records 30-second hooks for her song and sends it to her friends to get feedback before she actually goes and produces the entire track,
Wow.
right? So if we think about, make these philosophical experiments that the average person can actually relate to, and make that a guided journey to help them build something for the first time that they're passionate about. Surround them with peers that are going through the same journey so they would actually relate with them and respect
Very important.
their
point.
effort, you know?
Very important.
Because like I remember when I was a kid, like one of my uncles like was at home and he came and kicked one of the robots.
Oh my
You know,
God.
and like I had multiple experiences like this. People in my life who actively just didn't like that I was pursuing what I wanted and would find reasons to dog me down. And that's why I think it's even more important to be surrounded by people who have the same philosophical understanding, and why I'm very bullish on these like new university projects. Because at the end of the day, like I think a lot of times as adults, you know, like we get our kind of minds conditioned to operating successfully in the present world at our like demographic class. And we find it very hard to be in touch with what the new world looks like, especially as technology is adopting fast, AI is replacing a bunch of jobs. And so the most valuable asset that kids and young people have is their time,
Correct.
right? And it's hard to put a price on that time, or for us as adults to price their time, to decide on behalf of them what's more important, what's not.
True.
You know, going to a bar as a young kid, no, that's very bad investment of time. We can make that moral delineation. But going to start making films with your friends and skateboarding and stuff, how do we know that that's a worse investment of time than going sitting in, you know, prep classes to get into the right college, right? I think now as most of these automated jobs are being taken away, like kids will need to become like businesses of one. You know, it's the rise of the solopreneur class. It's the rise of the independent talent class. It's a rise of people who can make internet business, make a really good living, earning dollars on the internet. And they don't need to go do the 9 to 5 at a job anymore. They can go live in Bali, in West Africa, in Argentina, and have a really great business and kind of like spend more time living.
True.
And so this is, again, like really hard problem to solve because now, we're almost 8 billion people on planet Earth. But I think you can start small and kind of enable, kids to have a better life than even you did as a parent. And then kind of like really like double down on helping them explore and find, ikigai, right? Where they have work, they have life, they have all of these different things that contribute to balance. Because I think that's like the greatest pursuit.
Absolutely. It's very important to balance your life.
Yeah.
Because usually people with the old mindset of 9 to 5, they think this is the world and that's a bubble around us. And we think that everybody has to fit within the same journey. It is not like that. We have to allow people to explore their own expertise and bloom in their own way.
Yeah.
And just become a support system for each other, encourage each other and grow together
Exactly.
rather than limiting somebody and putting them down. So this is beautiful. The build space that you mentioned, is it still on as a project?
No, unfortunately.
Okay.
It just shut down.
Yeah,
Okay.
to everybody's surprise, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not
Okay.
like it wasn't doing well or whatever.
It's crazy. Last season, there were 70,000 people who participated in the program.
Wow.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But
That's more people from than MIT or something?
Stanford gets 60,000 applicants a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
So more people than Stanford were part of the program. But
Yeah.
no, yeah, the team winded it down. Primarily the founder. But I think the spirit still lives on. There's a lot of forks of the program. Now we have like the residency, which is similar. We have Founders Inc. We have the Knowledge Society, which is aimed at high school kids, helping them have, instead of going for tuition, they go spend that time working on their own projects. So the spirit still lives on, but yeah, Build Space, unfortunately, has come to an end.
But I think the legacy of impact of the company is going to be always impossible to quantify. But everywhere we've gone to like, recently we just came back from Argentina. I think I met like 7-8 people that were inspired and they're building like, I don't know, amazing companies or pop-ups or amazing tech businesses. They're like, oh my God, you were at BuildSpace. Like that inspired me because I think the unique thing about BuildSpace, I mean, we could talk about it for days, but the biggest like really interesting thing that we, Farhaj, you were touching on is, having a community of like-minded people over the internet and connecting them is like a really extraordinary thing that we have to be like, wow, the power of like social media and tech is, amazing connector of people. Because when we, like for me, I was only there for like 6 months. Farhaj there was since the very beginning. But, running a 6-week cohort where there's like 70,000 people going through it. And then actually at the end of these programs, there was like maybe 200 to 500 people came for these in-person events. And when you imagine like, let's say 400 different ideas being built by 500 people. So you have like, I don't know, like couples in Indonesia making sustainable wedding businesses sitting next to like an indie like punk like hacker guy from Russia making an AI product, and they all like harmoniously exchange ideas, motivate each other, give feedback to each other. Like it was just incredible to see like not only people's happiness, but the way that they motivated and pushed each other that made their businesses grow so fast in those like 2 to 3 day in-person events. And I think it's just like what BuildSpace did in terms of like helping people at scale doing this crazy thing was an amazing thing. But then, knowing that the power of bringing people together and what amazing things happen, I think was a big reason why we've also been passionate about like trying to develop a physical space to attract, develop and retain amazing talent in these different emerging economies through tech. So yeah, the Build Space lives off in people in all kinds of ways, I think.
That's beautiful. You've touched a lot of lives.
Yeah. Hopefully we can revive more of that energy.
That's great. Before we move forward, let me understand, how did you both meet?
That was a funny one, right?
Yeah.
I think, did you hit me up on LinkedIn?
Yeah, on LinkedIn. Yeah.
On LinkedIn. So Farhaj just hit me up, and it was like, what now? Is it nearly 2 years now ago? 1.5 maybe? Nearly or something.
Definitely a year and a half.
Definitely a year and a half.
Yeah.
So I think you just hit me up, and usually I get like a lot of things on LinkedIn and I never look. And then for some reason, I don't know, I guess it was his profile picture. It's like, oh, okay, let's see what he's saying. He's like, oh, let's just have a chat or something. I don't think it was much you said in a very short message. And then I clicked on the logo.
Let me see if I can find the cold message.
Oh,
That'd be crazy,
interesting.
man.
And
And then I looked at the logo and I was like, oh, Build Space, that's a cool logo. And then I looked at it, I was like, man, it's really extraordinary what we do. And then we just met up in person. Like we went to, we just like sat over, had a little meal together. And then, it was just so many things that like he was very passionate about and Build Space was passionate about, that I was like, oh my God, I'm like obsessed with, like, you seem like very, very good people, very motivated towards a very meaningful mission. Let's like stay friends. And then we ended up just basically, I ended up getting sucked into the business and started working with you.
Yeah. Amazing.
So I found it.
Oh,
Yeah.
So
interesting.
I think I just hit connect on his profile because I ran out of personal invites because I hadn't upgraded to gold.
Oh, is it? Oh, you were on the
So
list.
you were one of the few people I actually didn't write a call message to.
Mm.
And then he said, "Hi Farhaj, would be cool to learn more about Build Space. Anything that helps primary kids and upwards to build things, get creative and entrepreneurial. I'd like to help." And I was like, "Oh, great, would love to chat." And he just sent me his phone number and called me.
Awesome.
That was it, man.
And I would say that's the power of LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You know, you have, as you mentioned, like-minded people, a
Yeah.
community,
Oh.
whether it's online, whether it's physical, it makes a big difference to be around like-minded people. It really brings the best out of us. And I
Yeah.
think you guys are doing amazing.
Well, he's got 1,000,001 stories of, you have so many internet friends
stories,
that
yeah.
like, I don't know how many founders or investors or like, he's really, like, especially on Twitter, right? I think
Yeah,
Twitter is
yeah.
your main platform.
Yeah.
But yeah, like so many people, especially the younger generation, like there's so much like valuable connections people make on social media, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think like the mental model I have is when I first went to America, the entire journey was about like climbing Everest. If you think about like the climbing Everest framework, right? Someone who decides to climb Everest for the first time, like it's impossible for them to go and do the hike.
Right.
You got to first go on a trek, then you got to go on a hike, then you got to hike a mountain, then you like got to build up the ability to actually go and hike Everest. And so I thought that was exactly the same type of journey I needed to follow, right? So I went to Texas, started building startups. I started going to all these different startup competitions, which is my hike. And then trying to eventually even like did road trips out to San Francisco to meet investors. Because ultimately that's what the pilgrimage I wanted to make, because San Francisco is like the most serendipitous place on planet Earth with the highest concentration of, like-minded founders, venture capitalists, angel investors. I think the beauty of San Francisco that people don't seem to understand is like, there's of course the capital infrastructure, right? Very like progressive, like worldview is like super wide, like investors, builders, philosophers who want to come and like back people who build crazy things. But capital is actually not San Francisco's moat. It's culture, right? It's this safety net that they've built around failure being encouraged.
Very
For
nice.
people to fail fast, experiment, build things without your reputation being on the line, as long as you have a good moral compass. Like that's actually what's created this like amazing, you can call it a zone, right? Where any individual, regardless of their socio-political, geopolitical situation, economic circumstance, can go in and have someone bet on them and bet on their idea and try to create something out of it. And so I was really inspired by that. And then when I, came back from my road trip to Texas and I lived in Oklahoma for a little bit, I was like, man, like, especially through COVID, right? It completely changed the game. Because for my second startup, I was able to raise like 85% of my round completely on Twitter.
Beautiful.
And I was like,
crazy.
what just happened? This is surreal. And then I made a bunch of friends who are all like not living in San Francisco or New York. We were primarily in the Midwest, in Florida, some in Canada. Now Ara, who works with us. We created this Twitter group called the United Habibis. And
Nice.
we were all just like founders who were working on projects. We're in the early stage of our stuff. We were really struggling. I remember it was like over 4 years, I pitched like 3,000 times, got 294 meetings. That's it with VCs before I got my first ever check.
Amazing.
Right? It was brutal, right? But then we were like, if we help each other and we put each other on and help each other build a larger internet presence, maybe we can reach San Francisco just on Twitter, because that's where a lot of the people in San Francisco were spending their time. And so when we started doing that, it really blew our minds away. A lot of us were getting funded. I think the group chat is worth over $1.5 billion collectively now with all the companies that people have founded. And just like doing a bunch of interesting work. It's just like 12 of us who've stuck together for almost 5 years. And that really like helped like enlighten me to be like, okay, like there's this huge cultural trend that's happening. Now it doesn't matter if you have a US visa or not. The H-1B visa, the O-1 visa is invalid. Our friend Akshay came up with this kind of perspective where he's like, H-1B and O-1A is outdated. The TCP/IP visa is the new in for Indians, right? Where all you need is an internet connection to be able to access capital,
Correct.
to access labor, to build really huge things, find your next customer. You don't need to actually make that pilgrimage anymore. So philosophically, too, a lot of times when there's young people that I meet, people who are wanting to work on really cool things, I tell them the most important thing, just like you're doing now, is not only to work on something you're interested in, but to talk about it
Correct.
in a place where, n number of people could see it.
Absolutely.
Right? You just never know which post goes viral on LinkedIn. You just never know who interacts with the thing that you're working on. And there's this huge unlock of value that happens just by building something in public, right? And so so that's like the big like mission that I love more and more people to understand is like working on something in public is the highest return on investment thing you could ever do.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah, and you make internet friends, and you can just send a tweet and find 5 people to meet any city.
Yeah, even when we were I was asking you like kind of what inspired you in the book. That was almost we were just thinking about it. I was like, if you could share a bit more about that, like what inspired you to do that? It was something inspirational linked to like social media, right?
Absolutely. It's the same thing, which is sharing and bringing people together, not only growing yourself, but growing everybody, right? So when I started my journey from the corporate to the entrepreneurial world, what was the best thing to do is first put your strategies in place, right? Why do you put your strategies just for yourself? And luckily, I came across a good publication company who actually encouraged me to write a book. So what is the better topic to start off with where you can bring your knowledge and share it with the whole world? That's what the book came up with. And then, of course, instead of making it a physical copy, we said, no, let's make use of the internet. We went on Amazon. And that's how, and the book became a bestseller. And
Congratulations!
Thank you. So we are helping people. Even I'm trying to create a whole curriculum around it with a training program.
Yep.
We are also creating new succession plan for the leaders to come in. It's an annual program. So everything is there in the book, but most of the time people don't read the book, right? And even when you read and the way you perceive is one way, but when you get a guided training program, it makes a big difference. So again, it's hybrid. And again, it'll go online. So I think that's what we all are in the same sync of sharing and bringing people together and grow together. So that was my journey for the book.
I love it. Yeah. Mabruk.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So coming back to your build space. So now build space is gone. What's the next story?
Yeah, I mean, we left just like kind of a little while before the company kind of decided to close. And again, it wasn't because of this non-success of the company. It was just kind of more of a personal decision from the founder. But, when we were on the road, like speaking to so many countries, I think we were speaking to like over 20 cities and countries and heads of like, leadership and governments to look into developing a entrepreneurship campus or neighborhood. We were like, I think it was one time when we were coming back from a road trip from Abu Dhabi, we were like, we're trying to do this with Build Space, but as a private entity and a venture-backed business, we were prioritizing places that were able to, make it commercially viable, where we would be maybe a service provider or requiring sponsorship in order to build a physical, school for entrepreneurship and like a campus for bold thinkers. But then I think it was you that came up with the later down the road. We were like, oh, what's the Solana Foundation and what they're about. I think you kind of kicked off, right?
Yeah. I mean, basically, like outside of Build Space, I spent like about 3 years, most of my nights and weekends, contributing to, participating in, learning from the Solana network, right? So I have a lot of friends, really smart ones, who started building companies on the Solana blockchain. Me and my friends were one of the first like people who started like minting NFTs on there, just experimenting, having fun. It was like the early resemblance of this internet native community of people who were just like really excited about the technology and were experimenting with it, tinkering with it. And so even while we're at Build Space, we actually did the first like commercial partnership with Solana, where we launched a developer education program, multiple modules. So there were entry level ones and the 6-week really intensive one called Solana Core that helped developers go from zero to being job ready to earn 6-figure income as a developer in the Solana ecosystem. And so kind of throughout that time, I started to really think about, these like blockchains or, these payment networks as countries, right? Where you have merchants, users, investors, founders, developers, a huge economy of people who are creating value using the internet, who are capturing value using the internet. And, the economic activity is represented in price, almost like GDPs of countries are. Wow. And I think Solana's GDP, or market cap actually, is close to $80 billion today. It goes up, goes down. But it just shows how much economic activity is happening on chain, right? There's billions of dollars of volume of transactions that are getting processed. There are 6 companies that individually have $1 billion locked in their protocols that's getting put to work. And over 20 unicorns that are on chain. So it's like, I was like, this is really cool. And it felt like an evolution from Build Space, where the problem with Build Space was because it was like a private entity, venture backed, we were primarily focusing on the commercially viable options, because when we were doing our government BD, we met 2 types of countries. We met countries like the UAE, Greece, Japan, where they had a deficit of talent, but a surplus of capital, right? Or surplus of dollars. And they were willing to invest capital to attract the world's best talent to come here because they had great jurisdiction or they wanted more entrepreneurs to come create jobs. And then we went countries like Kenya, Tanzania, Argentina, where they had a surplus of talent, extremely talented, smart, ambitious, hungry, positive people, but they had a deficit of dollars or capital, right? Their economy was in a tough situation and they really want their talent to succeed so they can bring more dollars and revive the economy, become an ascending nation. And so personally, we had to focus on discussions with the dollar surplus countries. But personally, I think because of Babak and I's backgrounds, like we felt very impact oriented and like values aligned with these other countries. And so economically at that point in time, it didn't make sense for Bill Space to prioritize that. But I was thinking about it, I was like, wow, like the Solana Foundation, which is a nonprofit, they make a lot of public goods investments into increasing developers, founders, creators, artists, value creators economically all over the world. It would be a match made in heaven for them to have discussions with both types of countries.
Right.
They could go to countries that has talent and bring dollars to bring their talent into the Solana economy. And it's this really beautiful partnership. And so on one of our road trips back, I was like, I think maybe, we could work on the evolution of this with Solana. And so I reached out to a really good friend, Akshay, who's the head of international expansion there, kind of like pitched him the idea. And he was like, man, Solana economic zones. I've been thinking about this for years and we've never found the right people to lead it.
Amazing.
So that's kind of how like Forma came together. And
Beautiful.
so I think it was like 6 months ago now where we like officially started working on it.
June, actually.
June. Oh yeah, even shorter.
Even less.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time's gone by fast.
Mhm.
But yeah, since we had the idea, the philosophy was to kind of develop these zones in 3 phases.
Mm-hmm.
So I think people who live in the UAE is very familiar with free zones. For most people around the world, they probably don't have an idea what a free zone is.
Right.
So maybe before we get into Forma, I know like you did a lot of work with free zones, commercial districts, these special zones. Like it'd be great to share with your viewers what they are and what kind of opportunity they bring.
Absolutely. So basically for me, I came to Dubai in 2006 and that's when I joined the Free Zone, which is a T-Com investments. So the beauty about Dubai and the UAE is we create these pockets, right?
Yeah.
For the industries. So the whole aim was to build those specific industries. So we had teams which were dedicated for IT industry, media industry, knowledge, which again started to grow. So when we started with Dubai Media City, Dubai Internet City, and Knowledge Park. Free Zone basically is allowing 100% ownership to come in within the same land where the land is divided on the books, but there is no fencing around. So there are certain free zones which has fencing, which is more coming from the trading perspective. So the moment you're trying to bring your products and goods out of those gates, you have to pay the duties and everything. What we built was all service-oriented industries. And the beauty about it is, again, where my inspiration also comes in, is creating a community with like-minded people.
Yeah.
So having all the techies in one place,
Yeah.
but also creating that whole ecosystem which supports the main companies.
Yeah.
So similarly with media, so with Dubai Media City, we expanded into Dubai Studio City, Dubai Production City. So Dubai Studio City was more about for production and broadcast. So to have specialized studios for them, have sound stages, the massive sound stage that we have in Dubai Studio City. It's like 2 studios of 25,000 square feet connected with the elephant door, also having underwater shoot provision. So it's beautifully done. And similarly, we used to have the back lot. So very thoughtfully curated zones. And even when we worked very closely with the regulators, so we had the Free Zone regulatory body, right? So we team members, we used to work very closely because we were the front face with the clients, right? So we understand what is the gap. So we used to be having 2 type of team members, somebody who's into business development who would support you to come and set up your companies in a very easy way with your licensing, type of offices you want, from your desk space to offices, to buildings, to land, whatever is the requirement. Second is understanding what is the need and how to make your business run easily within this region, because this becomes a headquarter, right? Because you'll be serving within the region, Middle East region. So we used to work very closely for relaxing these policies. What else is needed to bring new businesses in terms of introducing the segments and the definitions. So a lot of things that we work with the regulatory bodies. This is what the Free Zone is all about, to bring the like-minded people together and build the community. So I think we all speak the same language, and especially here with the leadership, who's wanting to take this at a next level altogether, and they connect with the new generation and technology is something on priority, right?
Yep.
Even when it comes to the smart cities,
Yep.
the type of infrastructure that is going in, the whole country, the way it is being evolving. And now even the mainland, which gets relaxed, where we earlier needed local partner, right?
Yep.
Now that has also relaxed and it has been limited to certain activities only. So that is helping a lot of businesses to come in and flourish. What we built in Dubai Design District was something similar to bring the like-minded people, because it's very important, even when companies are thinking and wanting to see where is my address, correct?
Yep.
First of all, the name of the district, which is globally known, is already sold out for you as a no-brainer. If
Yeah.
you are into a design, you know that's your address, design district, and it's globally known as well. The aim, what we used to work on, was bringing companies from outside to get value within the country, rather than just moving people around the network, because you want to bring in new talents. When these companies are coming in as MNCs or the new startups, what else is needed is your talent. Freelancers. You need to retain these talents, right? We used to have a lot of community networks, industry events, to see how they can have synergies and grow together. Coffee mornings or regular annual events for the industry events, where like-minded people are coming from outside and local businesses are connecting together. And this really grew so big in terms of the way the community networks is massive. So this is something very interesting. And the beauty that we did in the free zone, when we were talking about education and like-minded people, there's a Dubai Institute of Design and Innovation that was one of the initiative of the company. Yes.
Yeah.
So that was one of the initiative taken by the company, and it's been designed by MIT and Parsons Group as a whole new curriculum. And the students are actually operating or studying within the district. So they have access to the companies, and they know what the real world is all about, rather than, studying in a whole different campus and then coming out and don't know what to do. So that curriculum goes back to the Parsons and MIT, and they are trying to take a lot of things and implementing in their locations as well. So this has gone as a very big success. So having this combination of students, which is the new talent, and engaging them within your businesses as well at a very early age, because this was our environment in our company, because when I joined in, we were all youngsters. Everybody had brilliant ideas, a lot of energy, a lot of collaboration, and that's how we see the success in every single free zone, with everybody's contribution coming up.
True. Yeah.
So that is how the whole free zone concept is, and it's relaxing. It's all business friendly policies coming in place. And the idea that you have of creating these tech economic zone is very, very important. I think we do have DIFC also working very closely in supporting this whole initiative. A lot of government entities are coming up to relax and contribute in terms of the regulation as well. So this is something very interesting. I think is going to help the economy. It's going to help the new talent, the new generation to come up and start exploring. And this is something new. I also see a lot of investors who want to actually fund into these areas. They see a bright future into it.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So let me know what is more planned when it comes to these economic zones, because this idea of yours is not only limited to Dubai, UAE. It is an idea that can go global. It will help so many countries, because everybody has so much of talent over there. So people don't have to keep traveling, but you are taking this concept in their own countries and actually helping every single country to economically grow. Because that's what is important, right? The talent.
For sure.
That's how the economy runs.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's what I really am grateful you gave that analogy, because I think it'll be easier for people to understand and absorb. And so kind of how we think about building Solana economic zones is in 3 phases.
Okay.
So a lot of times for countries and governments where there's a lot of promise, but there's hostile or not positive regulation that holds back businesses, I think for them to be able to see, there's kind of 2 ways that they understand, right? Either they talk to people who build zones or go visit other zones, they do delegation trips to these other countries and sees the impact of it, or they need someone locally to become a very active voice, a champion for it, to help them realize just the value that could be created. And so we kind of very strongly believe in it's not just voting with your words, but voting with your feet and your wallet, make an even bigger statement. And so how we kind of approach it is we kind of talk to what we call techno-optimistic countries that are very pro-technology, countries that are very big adopters of technology, and countries that want to create more technologists within their country. And so the first one that we did, our Solana economic zone was Argentina. right? Specifically with crypto and digital assets, it has the highest rate of adoption. Almost 60% of the population uses it on a day-to-day basis. Specifically digital dollars, right? There are capital controls on physical dollars you can withdraw in the country. You can't withdraw more than $200 a month.
Oh.
But this country sees record high inflation. It's now paused thanks to the new kind of like government. But people were sometimes on a day-to-day basis losing 40 to 30% of the value of their money. So imagine managing cash flow as a restaurant, as a it's a very difficult place to be able to earn and preserve your purchasing power. So crypto naturally found a product market fit there because people with an internet connection could trade in their pesos for digital dollars and then spend it in the economy.
Beautiful.
Right? And so it's really cool because we're very privileged to live in countries like the UAE, the United States, UK, Europe, even to certain degrees India, because when we wake up the next day, we don't worry about the value of our money getting lost.
Correct.
Right? Because that's the most important asset to us, the sovereignty of that money. And then the banks, they don't freeze your assets and stuff like that. But in these emerging countries, these are big problems. And so when we looked at that, we're like, wow, this is crazy. They have record high crypto adoption, very educated population, very high English literacy in Latin America, fastest growing developer market within the region, and their time zone is right next to the United States.
Beautiful.
So for remote work, for digital nomad work, for large industrial companies that want to expand there and get really smart talent, it just made a ton of sense. But their business policies are bad, right?
Yeah.
The previous governments made very hostile business kind of regulations that closed them off from the global economy.
Right.
Like for a founder, it takes 7 to 8 months to set up a business.
Oh my God.
So when you tell that to someone from a Dubai free zone, they can't even believe it, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Can you believe I got my license over the counter?
Yeah.
Over the counter.
Yeah.
Same time. I mean, this is amazing the way Dubai is progressing.
It's crazy.
During Expo.
Yeah.
So Expo was a game changer, I would say. Expo 2020. The team was amazing.
Yeah.
What they did that time to bring the hope in the country back, because you remember after the crisis,
Yeah,
it was quite
COVID and
difficult.
stuff,
People were
it was pretty bad.
losing the hope. But what they did was amazing. So that was the opportunity that I had to interact with a lot of government delegations that we used to invite in Dubai Design District at that time. This is one takeaway that I had from those government delegations when we used to explain what we are doing in Dubai and how easy it is for setting up companies. Even remotely, you can set up.
Yeah.
Then you get your visa, come in, then you do the stamping and everything, and you're good to go. Your company started already.
Yeah.
They were surprised and they were actually kind of very uncomfortable with their existing systems and had
100%.
so much to go back and fight and implement.
Yeah.
But again, those bureaucracy that they had to go through
Yeah.
is not easy. So I think this is kind of a lesson for all the countries to relax with their policies, because end of the day, when the economy is running, it's the money which is within the country, helping the country itself to grow.
Exactly.
So let them bloom, give them a chance, right? And anything that they might need in this kind of area, especially on the tech side that you guys are contributing, I think they should get in touch with you, because you also have very good experience when it comes to regulatory or the policy making.
Yeah.
And definitely a very good hands-on experience and knowledge when it comes to the tech side.
Yeah.
So I think this is a brilliant thing that you guys are working on. And I think shout out to all the governments out there.
We'd love to chat with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the Argentina example specifically, so we did our phase 1 there, right? Which is what we call a pop-up zone.
Right.
So it's not an actual zone where you can issue businesses or licenses. It's a way for us to demonstrate, hey, if you had progressive business policies and you had a progressive techno-optimistic culture, you can attract talent and empower local talent.
Absolutely.
So in 1 month, we had a 2-story campus right in the heart of Palermo, Hollywood, that we completely fitted out and that we completely financed and funded. And we were surprised. Our launch video, just kind of announcing this concept, went super viral. We had over like 1 million impressions on Twitter. We had like Argentinians being like, oh my God, this is so exciting. And so we made the thing completely free for Latin nationals too. And so I think over the course of the month, we had 250 residents, where 65% of them were locals, and then 35% of them were international people who were representing over like 90 businesses across the Solana ecosystem coming to that country.
Beautiful.
Right? And now interacting, like amazing interactions are happening between locals and internationals. We have people who became co-founders. We have people who raised funding. We have people who got jobs. We have people who got into tuition-free developer schools on Solana. We had a lot of artists who realized that they can get access to not only grant programs, but commercial opportunities to actually become artists full-time and earn, right? And so within that 1 month, we were able to demonstrate that we got $500,000 in foreign direct investment that we were able to track just within that month. We have a lot larger impact now. We launched a payments network with a local partner that allowed for 2,000 bars, restaurants, cafes to get paid in digital dollars using Solana. And so now they can accept that payment and save their money in dollars and put it to work in the local economy. And then third, which is the coolest, is we found 3 amazing locals, extremely talented, have been in the kind of tech space for a very long time. They decided to get together and build a long-term zone.
Amazing.
Right? So again, this
Amazing.
is not regulations, but it's community first.
Correct.
So you start with community, you get the district, and then the regulations follow.
Absolutely.
Right? And so they've built a long-term Solana hub called Solar, and they're educating developers, they're giving them access to grants, they're helping these startups raise funding, and empowering local Argentinians to earn dollars and succeed on the internet.
Wow.
And so that was like really magical. So that's like the phase 3 is empowering locals to start a community hub. And so what we're going to do over the next year is we're going to do 4 more locations. So we're going to do Middle East, which will be in the UAE, where now we work with the government to create better regulations.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yes.
And then Asia, we're talking to counterparts in Sri Lanka and Philippines right now. Eastern Europe is very exciting for us because there's a lot of organic adoption of these digital assets and a willingness to go into building out new economic zones.
Mhm.
And then, the kind of last part of the rodeo is going to be in Africa. And so there are a handful of countries and kind of like charter cities we're talking to who are also working on building new economic zones, new districts. And so our philosophy is for most of these people who natively work on the internet, if we can increase the ease of doing business for them, make it very easy to set up a business, make it easy for them to get access to bank accounts, make it easy for them to thrive within a safe jurisdiction, internet first and then physical second. That would be just a very big unlock for humanity.
Absolutely.
And so, that's what we're doing at a high level. And the hope is by the time we're done with the next 4 zones, we can find a permanent location for us to establish an actual physical zone with regulatory ability to become a really great place for these internet businesses to incorporate out of.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Tell me some fun facts. It's too much of serious talks.
Fun facts.
I like that spin.
Fun facts. Jesus Christ. In what sense? I don't know.
Any incidents that you can share with us
Interesting.
can be a fun fact. I don't know.
I mean, we had
Well,
some really cool Argentine experiences.
We had, that was a trip, wasn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, I one thing that's quite interesting when I was reflecting on what was the most unexpected moments, let's say, in our 1 month we had the pop up in Argentina and Buenos Aires for a month, and prior to that, myself and some of the team were also there for a whole scouting trip. So we were there for the last 3 months. We were there for 2 months, and we always wanted to encourage people to come up with ideas. We didn't want to be very heavy on programming. We'll have this formal talk and that talk. People in the day just need to get on with working. And then we want to make sure that people have meaningful, open up and connect with one another. And then, we plan things kind of on a rolling basis. But we wanted to encourage people to come up with ideas. And one of the ideas that someone threw out there was let's have a poetry night. The moment I saw that, because we're hosting this, right? And we are switched on and engaging with 300 people on a daily basis. We can't not be there, right? And
Right.
I just felt especially a very typical Asian who someone's in their house. You have to want to make sure everyone's well fed and you're engaged and you're there and you're happy. I was like, my God, man, I have no idea about poetry. I like Shakespeare is a poet or something, maybe.
Gaming, I'm there, but poetry?
Yeah. I was like, dude, if I go to sit and click, it's just so fake and I hate to be fake. So I was like, I'm gonna go there and I'll smile and it'll be great. And I was like, oh God, this is so cringe. So I was frantically trying to find a poem because everyone's gonna read and maybe talk and open up. But it was probably one of the best things that we all did. It was surprised that there was maybe 50 people in a big round circle in this we had one floor which was just quiet co-working, and it was really good environment. But then the upstairs was more like a playground. We could have
Okay.
bean bags and seats, and we had grass floors. It looked almost like a beach indoors. And you could do anything you wanted. So we had everyone's kind of circled around, everyone having a little something to make them relax or whatever. And everyone from, I think we had 10 different countries saying poems in their language, and everyone was just really connecting and being vulnerable and talking about very deep stuff. Did not expect that at all. For me, and seeing the next day, how everyone then, because when you go to a conference and you meet someone for 2 days, 1 day, these conferences, you only have 10-minute conversations. And it's usually after your third or fourth conversation, you build trust, then really good ideas and opportunities come up. It was one of these things about pop-up experiences or things that are longer than a week or a month, is that, people really form trust bonds, and then they come up with conversation points and they take their ideas forward. I think just that small weird idea, which I never thought would have done anything, made everyone feel much more connected, and they were like, having really meaningful connections and discussions. But that was a poetry night, man. So for me, I was like, if there were all the really crazy things that we did, which was really valuable, people talking over poetry and being vulnerable was like one of the biggest unlocks. So that was an interesting experience, I thought.
First time in my life, and probably yours too, that I actually read poetry.
Yeah. Bro, I never heard you speaking Malu. It was Malu, wasn't it?
No, it was actually Hindi.
Hindi. Yeah. I was like, oh, damn, this is cool.
Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara, like
yes.
that last scene where like Farhan Akhtar is like in the car. And,
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know, going through some emotions.
Right.
That was like a very impactful, like, I don't know, like the shairi for me. And I was like, dang, I guess I'll just like read it out to people because I think it's very interesting. It talks about like you only live once, and so you really got to like try to live life to the fullest. And then we had like another person who was Korean.
Yeah,
they're reading Korean poems to us, and it was just really beautiful because like understanding the meaning is great, but there's a certain sense of power when it's said in native tongue. It was one of the most like least expected, most fun, kind of emotional experiences we had.
It was really
That's
cool.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was really cool.
That's beautiful.
Because in any kind of work environment, and I mean, I don't think there was much of a culture of this is like a work event. It was much more about like we want to make the world a better place, and we want everyone to meet their own business and professional goals. But I think that just like was a special thing that like
you build a lot of depth with the people around.
Yeah. Because everyone cares about their family. They care about certain things. So there was that American guy that came up with some really interesting. But like just having all those different multicultures and just seeing like we're all humans. Because if you think about it, like most of the accelerators or programs or things that are out there, how multicultural are they often? Like we're lucky we're in the UAE. I was raised in the UK. You spend a lot of time in the US. Those are very multicultural places. But I felt that one of the biggest special things about what we had over there was like over half of the people were from local, and then we had all these people come from abroad. I think like more than 30 countries represented, and for them to be like there to be pure harmony and everyone just like connecting, even if people had language problems. Like there was like a lot of like, I'm fortunate I was able to speak some Spanish, but like you made just as many friends and like had as many deep conversations with people that maybe you guys struggled with it, but you figure it out. So.
We have that human language, right?
Yeah,
we do connect.
That's what
we do connect. And what you mentioned was the shairi that you mentioned, right? We have one life.
Yeah.
It's so important for us to live that life.
Very true.
Don't have mental blocks. Be open-minded. Meet people, learn from people, interact. So I think what you're building in these kind of communities and these kind of events, I think it's beautiful and bringing people together. And there's so much to learn from each other, take back. And sometimes this becomes a life changer for somebody. We don't know who's taking what learnings from each other. It really goes back and it changes completely. Yeah. Because for me also, when I interacted with somebody from the publication company, it changed my life completely. So the publication company name is Wings Publication, and I said, you gave me wings.
Oh, really? Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But those are the things that has like long-term ripple effects. Like when someone is inspired or enabled by somebody, then they're able to enable and inspire someone. So I think, like, for example, like I was like 6 years living in Abu Dhabi, and I was fortunate enough to be part of a lot of the ADGM and Hub 71 story. Like before it was even called Hub 71, we were called the Abu Dhabi Innovation Center. And then Hub 71 came in, and a lot of like hundreds of companies moved into Abu Dhabi, startups and VCs and all these exciting things. But one thing that like takes time to build, but is just as important as the great regulations and capital infrastructure, is we touched on the word culture a lot, but like having an environment where people can openly share ideas, and that like you want to help your neighbor. Like even though like California and San Francisco is like one of the most competitive places, you don't really hear people like thinking about like IP protection at the beginning. They're willing to just say their crazy idea and be like, look, it's better out than in, and it's better to like hear and build in public and see what people say. And I think it's one of those things that it's so exciting that I think we're now like, you've been in the Web3 space and I've only recently got in, but especially over the last 2 years, we've seen so much talent in crypto and Web3 coming into here, whether it's just like because of the greatness of the infrastructure here or things around, like there's been a bit of instability in Russia and Ukraine and different policies that have attracted people to be like, dude, this is the most competitive place.
Absolutely.
I think the last week, I don't know how many Americans and Canadians are like, oh, dude, I'm happy to move right across the world.
So
This is
true,
an amazing
so
place. And it's just so good that, different cultures coming together are bringing their cultures and then amalgamating more. yeah, I think there's no one in the world that's not bullish on the UAE, which is good.
They felt a very similar energy in Singapore too.
Yes.
And it's crazy how these small, city-state, nation-states.
Yeah, like Zug as well. Like
Yeah,
Switzerland
yeah,
is doing
Zug,
something crazy.
Switzerland. I think it's because like philosophically, like the government here like treats people who are here citizens or not like customers, right?
Correct.
And their like primary KPI is customers happiness index.
Yes.
I don't know if this is a metric. Probably is because they
It
have
They
is.
do have it.
It
They have
is.
Ministry
Yeah,
of Happiness. There's a
yeah,
Ministry of
absolutely.
Happiness.
Yeah. And this is what I love about this place is about, checking how happy you are. Because if you
Exactly.
are happy, everything is falling in place.
Exactly.
So the way you are raising your children,
Yep.
your family, the lifestyle that you have, everything is like, coming
Exactly.
together. So that's
Yeah.
beauty. I think if I compare it like a mother, it's a parenting, right? I would put the government as parents. How relaxed environment you have in your family, you will see the impact on those children, which is the citizens, how they are growing together. Families who live together, they support each other, they make big. So I think if I put the same concept with our government over here, the vision that Sheikh Zayed had to make something out of nothing, he had nothing when he started. It's so mesmerizing to see where we all have reached. And the beauty is you see all the progressive mindset people coming over here because they have so much inside. They want to experiment, they're not able to.
Yeah.
So where do I remove all the talent? Where do I have like-minded people? This is the place. And that's how we have everybody coming in here.
I actually love that analogy.
Yeah, it's true. It
Yeah.
is like a refuge of like bold and creative people. Like
Yeah.
it is a very safe place to just get on with what you want to do. Everyone's just get on with their things, and you have your liberties. Like very free place.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the way people connect with each other, and you just want to talk what we can do together. Let's
Yeah.
collaborate. Let's do
Yeah.
something new. So that's really nice, and that's something the leadership has really brought in here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Touch with, man.
yeah.
Glad we're here. And even our friends at the foundation, like Solana, like they love it here, and we're just glad. Like anyone we speak to, it's like I don't think anyone has a bad word to say about here, which is great because there's just so much noise, especially in like the West and stuff like that. Things just seem to be spiraling in one place, but it's good to be here, I guess.
Absolutely. And the variety of spaces that has been created as well, right?
Yeah.
When you want to have campus style feel, Expo City have something campus style feel. If you have corporate feel, then you have DIFC. So everything has been taken care of.
Yeah.
Incubation centers,
I'm gonna go to Al Sarkar for art.
Al Sarkal as
Yeah.
arts. Now, the way Ras Al Khaimah is coming up,
Yeah.
I mean, where did we imagine the property rates to be so high?
Yeah.
So there's every time some initiatives being taken care of that, the whole society is growing together. So that's amazing. Question.
Yeah.
If you would like to have dinner with any leader across the world, who will it be? Think you have to deal with a lot of governments.
Leader. I guess it would be. I would say I would love to talk to. I mean, he's not leader yet, but it would be Sheikh Hamdan. I think would be super interesting because I think as the crown prince here in Dubai, I have people that like know him and work with him mostly closely in the government, and already his father's just done such an amazing job as with the leadership in Abu Dhabi. But it'd be lovely to see kind of like what his long-term vision is and like what's inspired him, how has his childhood been, because there's so much amazing things that's already happening. It's going to be probably like the trajectory is only going to go away. I'll probably be my one actually. I think I'll be Sheikh Hamdan.
That's definitely a top candidate for me.
That's a really good question. I never thought about it actually.
Probably like Lee Kuan Yew.
Yeah, that's another great one.
Yeah, Singaporean Prime Minister. Yeah. I think like how they turned the country around is extremely impressive, and also like from our time spent there, I was genuinely surprised by like the nationalism. Most of them kind of demonstrated. America's been around a few hundred years. A lot of these European countries even longer. But for a small country to have so much national pride is really interesting. And I think I'm particularly very impressed by the way they've designed their government.
Absolutely.
Government officials are like executives. They have some of the most highest competitive jobs, making $1.5 million a year, right? Where they're looking after primary KPIs, representing the government. So they're actually they're incentivized not to do anything outside of like what's best for the country and then their personal interest because they compensated really well for their work. And so I think that's very interesting, with these countries that are kind of like now swinging back upwards. I think there's a lot of ability to, again, increase ease of doing business, build a lot of trust with their citizens. And I think, in my mind, UAE and Singapore are definitely top of the charts.
That's amazing. I think
Yeah.
they've made that benchmark
Yeah.
for a lot of countries to follow.
Yeah.
So I
No
think-
President Biden?
What?
I had to drop that at the trolley there. Sorry, man.
It's funny though. Yeah.
Imagine that conversation.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see what the elections is coming up in like a few weeks now, right?
Yeah.
That's it. It's crazy.
It's exciting times there.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking up to them.
Yeah,
Let's see what
yeah,
comes
yeah.
out the best.
Yeah.
So, what's your 5 years vision down the line with your new project?
Great question. I mean, I think like our founding kind of deepest belief is that, can we help to shape a community, a digital and a physical infrastructure that will attract, develop, and retain some of the world's best local, international talent to build better on the web and to like prosper and create economic value, not just for them, but for everyone included. How that will shape. I mean, we had a great short-term experiment, which was almost like an economic accelerator and a think tank, bringing locals and foreigners together to think about what are long-term programs and products and policies we can implement in Argentina. But I think like the next year, we're going to learn a lot on like all fronts across different regions. Because actually what is a Solana economic zone in Argentina will be very different to what would be the same in UAE because the priorities are different. So in the long term, I think like in 5 years, I feel very strongly and I have strong conviction that we will be able to kind of either build with a free zone or a charter city an amazing place where we are able to be that kind of cultural advisor and like policy layer that to help attract and people get started and to grow with their Web3 businesses somewhere around the world. I think we will actually be building like like a physical neighborhood and a regulatory kind of body or advisor. I think those are the main things. And I hope like across all the places that we launch our pop-ups, there'll be long-term communities and programs and policies like that will be creating long-term sustainable value for the people of those countries and the Web3 community. I think that would be it, man. I would be like the things I really hope to get at least make sure in 5 years.
Yeah, I think like Balaji Srinivasan is like quite a like big figure. Like he wrote like the Network State book. We were just at his conference. It was really cool. And so he has this like philosophy that these internet native communities will be able to find shared identity and eventually work their way towards land, right? And becoming physical communities. And so his like entire like thesis actually started with this essay about someone you might know about, Ramanujan from India. Right? Just an average kid who stumbled across a math book and was spending his time in temple solving problems by himself. Didn't go to any institutional school, nothing like that. And essentially one day discovered a proof that wasn't written about. He tried to find as much knowledge as he could about that proof. Didn't exist. So he wrote a letter to, I think it was Oxford, about this proof. And then the people over there just were in absolute disbelief because they were like, how does someone who's gone to no school, no college, nothing whatsoever, practicing math in a temple, they thought it was a joke, they couldn't believe it, like come up with this proof that none of these Oxford kind of like researchers were able to. So they basically gave him a one-way ticket to the UK where he spent a lot of his time creating a lot of the new mathematical proofs that help us kind of move society forward today. And, they call this like dark talent, where there's a lot of these incredibly talented people who by virtue of their geopolitical situation or socioeconomic situation are not able to contribute to humanity in the same way as they could. And like the internet is the great equalizer. Because now anyone, can be like Ramanujan, access the internet, learn whatever they want, and start to build merit on the internet.
Absolutely.
And so I think like my hope is, just like Babak said, if we can build the right regulatory environment, the right physical, jurisdiction that can be a home, for people like him and people like, the next like Ramanujan, who are just inspired, regardless of the scale of their impact, just want to work on their lives and find the right community, the right regulatory environment. Like it'd be amazing, to kind of build that for them. And hopefully we're also just a small stepping stone, right? That helps them get the minimum viable economic security that they need to move on to make larger impact elsewhere. And so that's the goal. It's like hopefully in 5 years, not only do we have the zone, but we have a great city where we can actually take a lot of these experimental universities, experimental education programs, experimental research programs, and have a very deep, trusting relationship with the government to allow the commercial testing a lot of these new technologies that are not able to get their first pilot to hopefully prove that some of these things work and then scale and fork it across the world, kind of become like brokers,
Right.
for really cool technologists and artists and creators and philanthropists to prove out their thesis with us, regardless of whatever resources they have, and graduate on to much larger things by giving them merit.
Right.
So that's the hope.
Beautiful. And what's your backup plan? Because the way everything is shifting very fast, right? So from Web 1, Web 2, Web 3.
Yeah.
What's next? What's your plan to adapt to these kind of changes from the long-term perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think like one thing that we're very actively thinking about is like distribution is the most valuable like resource like today. It's not capital, right? Like attention economy. That's like what we're heading into, especially with everyone's access to the internet. Like it's very important to have that. So at Build Space, we very quickly grew to have a very large audience.
Correct.
So we had like 100,000 followers on Twitter. Every post we made was getting millions of views. We had a very large YouTube, very large Instagram. We were able to culturally be relevant in our community's mind, which is what gave us the trust from them, kind of take a bet and go through the program and curriculum. So I think our thesis is one, like the zone we're going to build entirely on Solana. So end to end, and people won't even know they're using crypto. That's how it should be.
Right.
No one should know they're using crypto.
Correct.
Crypto should just do the service
Yeah.
and make the financial services better.
Right.
Right? Instead of waiting 3 to 5 days to get a Swift transfer, you now get it within seconds.
Wow.
Right? And so like everything will be kind of built on crypto rails to make the zone very easy to use and hopefully accessible to a lot more people than traditional zones are able to today. But on the second part, I think what we're going to do is we're going to run it like a media company. Right? And create a lot of content, build a lot of lore, be very genuine, show the wins and the struggles of building this thing out, going on that journey, and hopefully have a very large audience that can then become like, our evangelizers. And because if we have a very large audience, they'll tell us what direction to pivot into to make sure that this stays ephemeral, right? Versus us singularly, directionally focusing on an outcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What are the industries that you're focusing on? So this whole project will support which industry verticals to flourish? Is it limited or is it across the board?
I'd say it's like focus to start with. So our primary focus is internet native businesses, whether it's crypto or not, right? And so the type of people that we saw at Build Space, anyone setting up a Shopify store, to a manga artist, to maybe someone in a country where they don't have access to great banking regulations. That's like can set up a business, get a bank account, and start to earn dollars for their work for the first time. And so I'd say internet-based businesses and digital asset businesses to begin with. But eventually, now in like the kind of Web3 space, we're seeing a lot of hardware products and physical products come to life.
Yeah.
People are building like new like Wi-Fi routers and a lot of these like really interesting products. So I could see us expanding to there, but I'd say the primary focus is on internet businesses.
Yeah. But I think like also like within crypto, you have people that are making products in sustainability and green technologies. You have people that are making things, not just financial services, but how can people monetize the art or the music that they make?
Correct.
So
Creators.
I think we are looking at like the horizontal, which is I guess like tech businesses, predominantly Web3. But I think within that, people are building pretty much anything and
There's
everything.
an integration with all different industry verticals
Yeah,
in
even
a very
logistics.
unique manner.
Yeah. Everything. I mean, like logistics, people are on chain trying to better track much more efficiently where the source of something is. Like there was a wine company that I heard about. What was that? What was that called? Devin. And like so people are literally on chain tracking the where wine bottle is bottled and all this kind of stuff, and that's actually going to be like a valuable company. But like like logistics, pretty much crypto and blockchain can empower a lot of businesses, and it can even create industries. I think like I don't know. I think artists and musicians aren't getting the best deals when it comes to just like some traditional things like Spotify and working directly with big labels and stuff. I've met just us in Argentina, which is such a creative place, Buenos Aires especially. It's like everywhere you go is art. Like it's insane, music everywhere. Like there's so many great communities of people that are empowering and as artists making their art online and putting it on chain and NFTs and all this kind of things. Like without blockchain technology, those industries, like those people would really, really struggle. So many economies and different verticals that are being powered up by blockchain.
Right. How do you see the future from the traditional money and the crypto? How do you think that will integrate in future? Which will be overpowering which currency?
I think it's already very like compatible, right? So if you look at what's hidden product market fit within crypto or digital asset space, is stable coins. So the primary utility of stable coins is to match the price of a fiat asset and give people who might not be able to access physical dollars the ability to spend digital dollars by holding those dollars in reserves. So one of the biggest ones is called Tether, USDT. They have over $120 billion of Tether issued today. And they're actually over collateralized. So banks, for the most part, don't have the liquidity, right? Which is why when there's a bank run, there's a crisis, the bank collapse, and the country has to come save them. Tether has fully open reserves.
Wow.
At any point in time, you can see how much in dollars and how much in other assets that they hold. They're completely over collateralized. They're making more money than JP Morgan in terms of profit. I think they did $6 billion of profit last quarter. And they're not taking any of that. They're directly investing that into their reserves to make it the strongest US dollar denominated kind of like fiat, opportunity for people. And so stablecoins is very big, for example, right? And I don't think it's a net negative. If anything, it's a net positive. Because how are we living in the 21st century and being able to tolerate 3 to 5 days for my money to get to someone else?
Correct.
Right? When we're connected by virtue of the internet. Like anti-money laundering and KYC should be really efficient. It should be very scalable. And these banks shouldn't take this much time.
And cost.
And cost too, right? On Solana, I can send you 10 USDC right now for hundredth of a cent, right?
Yeah, and you could be anywhere in the world.
It's going to be even cheaper when the new validator client called Firedancer comes out. Strike today is able to do 10 to 20,000 transactions per second. Solana will be able to do 1 million transactions per second. So you can actually get the entire globe onto financial rails and accessing digital currencies that have a very strong interlinkage with traditional fiat currencies. So a lot of people sometimes think about crypto as a competitor to fiat, but it's actually an enabler of fiat.
Okay.
Right? Today, the United States only represents 4% population of the world. And the dollar is the most favored currency. It's a globally kind of tradable currency, but only 10 to 15% of the world actually has access to dollars. Right now, you allow for the power of the USD or other currencies. Maybe it's the AED, right? They're launching an AED-backed stablecoin here in the UAE. In a lot of the other countries too, they're making digital versions of these stablecoins. They can be used for global primitives. Whether it's decentralized finance, whether it's trading. Now they're making crypto backwards compatible to RWAs, which are real world assets. So, someone sitting in Nigeria can buy digital dollars and put their money on stocks, own treasury bills, United States treasury bills, buy bonds of governments just through the internet. So I think that's the beauty of it is a lot of people, I think, have this misunderstanding that crypto is looking to dethrone the existing financial system. It's the exact opposite. It's trying to make the existing financial system available to the 85% of the world that, essentially has all these people around the world vote for change on our future with dollars. Now be able to participate in this global economy.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So,
And I think interesting development, not that much attention's around, but the BRICS nations are now thinking of creating a competitor to SWIFT. And that's something to just keep, because is there going to be crypto rails in that?
crypto rails.
On crypto rails.
Yeah.
So, I think of all the global transactions in the world, over 90% of it's still non-crypto, but growing percentage that's on crypto and on chain is rising. But if someone coming in with a competitor of SWIFT, and it's still half the world is kind of almost represented through the BRICS nations or something like that. A lot could change pretty quickly, in the crypto world. But this is all in 1 week. I think these announcements have been made, right? So a few days ago. So keep your eye on the space. You just don't know where it's going to go.
True. And there's a lot of transaction already happening of physical products with the cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, I think USDC just published a report. I might be wrong, but I think what I read was $17 trillion of volume of stablecoins has been processed through the kind of USDC payment system, and that's way more than Visa.
Yeah.
And so I think the magic of it is, again, a lot of these people who had to do it through black market or gray market, in these emerging markets, right? Which is, again, the primary use case is countries that have not great financial systems. Inflation is very high. People are really struggling to hold on to the ability to preserve their purchasing power. That's where, crypto has a lot of adoption, specifically these digital assets, because they use it on a day-to-day basis. And we saw this in Argentina. There was a bakery right underneath our campus, and this tiny bakery, you could go buy gluten-free bread or coffee there, right? And they were accepting payments in stablecoins.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and
Very
so you
nice.
could buy bread over there, with stablecoins. And it was wow, this is amazing. When you go to Georgia, right? Tbilisi, you'll see Western Union, they'll have like US dollar, euro, GBP rates. Right next to it, you'll see something that looks nicer than Western Union. They're going to have Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDT rates, right? So you can actually buy them or sell yours and get access to lira that you can spend around the country. So I think that's what it's just going to be backwards compatible, and people can opt, which system that they choose to use, while still benefiting from like the unlock of like the participation of the global economy through the internet.
I think it's a lot of contribution you're doing towards the humanity. People
I
who
hope
are
so.
wanting to come out with their talents, they want to grow in life. I think it's a huge contribution coming from your side. You're bringing them together. You're enabling their growth. You're giving them a lot of confidence to move ahead, and a lot of shift that will happen in future. And you will be big names for sure in future, where you will be the contributors and known names. This is what I feel with all our
Preea says it's
discussions over
going to be
here.
true. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Lovely having you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
For coming
It was
all
a
the
pleasure.
way.
Thanks for having us. Hopefully, we'll see you at the next Solana Economic Zone. We'd love for you to visit.
Looking forward.
Yeah.
Amazing. Great. Thank you so much.